Well, I'm out today on the red bike, the Revolt Advanced 1. It's a lot colder today than I expected, but then again it is winter. But I'm still waiting for my share of global warming. And that little section's a 20 mile an hour speed limit. I've just come down there 33 miles an hour. And the cars are still driving away from me. But there we go, it's only cyclists that break the rules according to them. I'm glad I put my body warmer on today, or gilet as we now call them. Starting to wish I'd put some warmer gloves on though. And today I'm off to do some mountaineering. I'm going to go up here to Coity. From Coity there's a big climb over to Holy Cow. From there up to Lanharan, but I'll go across the quieter road through Brenner, which means a bit more climbing, and then I'll come back on the main road. Pencoed. From Pencoed I'll use the cycle path alongside the dual carriageway back to Bridgend. And there we go. They wonder why we don't use the cycle paths. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today, was cars. And this is the Coity Castle. I always find it interesting how it sits in amongst the houses. As I said, I thought I'd talk about cars, and I know some of you will roll your eyes and oh, not again. But that's in the same way that I roll my eyes every time I see in the paper or somewhere in the media that cyclists are the enemy. Cyclists do this, cyclists do that. And while they dial up the anti-cycling rhetoric, it's incumbent upon us as cyclists to counteract that in whatever small way we can. Boy, this hill just keeps on going. Boy, that hill really takes it out of me, but look at the view you get once you've done it. And although I'm really slow up there and other people don't think it's much of a hill, this time last year it was a hill that I thought I'd never be able to climb. So just going up it is an achievement. Anyway, back to the story. Because the anti-cycling rhetoric comes from people with vested interests in keeping us off our bikes and in our cars. In particular, the oil companies who already feel their profits are at risk with the drive towards electric cars. So they want to soak up every last drop of profit. Car manufacturers, whether we're electric or not, still have a vested interest in selling us cars. And I know many people rely on their cars. They have no choice. I mean, I'm not criticising people for driving their cars, because that's how the system was designed. In Britain in the 60s, we had the Beechings Report, which recommended we closed down all the branch railway lines, which meant rural communities were completely cut off. And the only way they could get about was in a car. Now, I have no evidence of this, but I'm pretty sure that it was the oil companies that lobbied government to get people off public transport and into cars. The government went along with that quite willingly because, hey, you don't have to spend money on public transport. Make people fund their own transport. And after that, they said even better, we can tax them on it. And they sold people on the lie that it was about freedom. And people fell for it. Now, after all these years, let's have a look and see how that freedom is going. You have to pay for driving lessons. You have to pay for a driving test. You have to buy a car. Generally, you can't afford to, so you finance a car, so you'll be paying interest on the car. And then you pay road tax. And you pay fuel tax. And you have to buy the fuel. And you have to pay for insurance. And you have to pay for maintenance. And you have to pay for tyres. And you have to pay to park the car whenever you go somewhere. And then there's the low traffic neighbourhoods. And then there's the low emission zones. And there's congestion charging. And so you have to pay even more money to go to a city. And every year, companies like BP declare $20 or $30 billion of profit. And that's just one out of several oil companies. And of course you can't have a drink. Not that I'm advocating drinking and driving. All I'm saying is it's another restriction which you wouldn't have if you were on public transport. Or better still, on a bike. And all these restrictions have come about because there's too many cars on the road. And yet any mention of cycling infrastructure or better public transport is met with condemnation by the vast majority who want to keep their cars. And that's because for decades they've been fed this constant idea that a car is something you should aspire to so that you can keep feeding the corporate machine of profit. And now we've got to the stage where we just have no more room for cars. Just look around. See how much land has been taken up by roads and car parking, and how people have dispensed with a garden so that they can park 3 cars. And every side road is nose to tail with parked cars. Cars on the pavement, so there's no room for people to walk or push chairs, things like that. Cars parked on cycle tracks because they believe the sense of entitlement. They believe that the car is the most important thing in modern society. And they believe it because they've been told it. Make comments like roads are made for cars, cyclists shouldn't be allowed on the road. And it's ironic really, because whilst they think that cyclists shouldn't be allowed on the road, they're quite happy to park on a cycle path. And of course the more cars there are on the road, the more frustrated people get, and they start to become aggressive. They can't get where they want to go easily. It's the dream of this freedom is realised is false. like so many things that we were told would make our lives easier, have actually had the opposite effect. Instead of riding a bike calmly or sitting on a bus reading a book, people are stuck in traffic on their way to work, frustrated. They're already feeling stressed and anxious by the time they get to work, because there's no downtime. I know I'm going back many, many years, but before the car became so mainstream, if you needed to go and do business somewhere, maybe 200 miles away, you'd pack your case, get on a train, and spend a day getting there, stay in a hotel, you'd do a day's work, again, another night in a hotel, and then the following day you'd come back. But now, you're expected to do a day's work. The day before your trip, and then the following day, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, spend all day driving, or spend hours driving, should I say, get there, do a day's work, and then drive home in the evening, and get home late at night, and then be expected to be back at your desk, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed the next morning. So again, there's no downtime, and then people get stressed, and now we've got to the situation where people are getting into their 50s and saying, I'm sorry, I don't want to do this anymore. And the fact is, there's too many cars on the road, and unless somebody does something about it, I think we're in a lot of trouble. And we're going to get to the stage where we simply can't even move the goods around that we need to, because the roads will be gridlocked. And cycling isn't the only answer, but it is one of them. Every journey somebody makes on a bike is one they haven't made in a car. And we need to try and get that message across. And for all those people who are anti-cycling and make us angry, well, it's not really their fault, because for decades they've been persuaded that the car is for years, decades they've been persuaded that everything should be about the car. And when you get upset because they hate cyclists, just remember, they hate each other too.